Oh my God, it's a Friday again. It seems this happens a lot. But I've had a topic I wanted to talk about for the longest time, and I keep forgetting about it. And then I was not sure if I should do this on my main channel or on this channel. I think I'll do it here because it's not about something in the news. But I was reminded of the idea when I was watching the cable yesterday. I was flipping around through the 9,000 channels looking for something that was on, and I happened to come across 4 weddings and a funeral. That's a movie. Not that I came across, just 4 different weddings and a funeral. And if you haven't seen it, it's a Hugh Grant vehicle that did quite well back in the day. It actually is a fun movie. If you haven't seen it, you might want to see it. It's British, but it's funny. And it raises an interesting legal issue. And a lot of people, it's not going to even occur to people that this is a legal issue. And when I say it, some people are going to go, wait, oh. And others are going to go, what? Which I like. I like it when I can get people to go, huh? But there is a pivotal scene in the movie, and I won't ruin it for you by telling you who is in the scene. But at one of the weddings, remember there's 4 weddings. At one of the weddings, the person at the front, the officiant, says, should anyone present know of any reason that this couple should not be joined in holy matrimony, speak now or forever hold your peace. Or words to that effect, because that is something that's said at a lot of weddings. And because of Hollywood, most people think that for whatever reason, they just actually give anybody who wants to the opportunity to go, hey, I'm in love with her, or I'm in love with him, or he's in love with her, or you get a bride, you get... But wait, why would they put an opportunity to object in a wedding? Now, I've already hinted that this is a legal issue, and it is. But it has nothing to do with courts where you can object because, there are objections in court. But then again, the objections in court don't come from the gallery. They would come from the participants. And so, weirdly, it's customary to announce to the entire congregation that if anyone anyone here knows of a reason why these two should not be wed, speak now, which implies that you're allowed to speak. Or forever hold your peace, which implies that you better think about this hard because this is the last chance you get. A really strange thing to say at a wedding. You might say, why? Okay, Steve, why? Why is that? And some of you may have guessed because I said it's a legal thing, but I actually went and looked this up because I was kind of curious myself about the history of it. How far back can they trace this? And I found several different places that say that it, among other things, can be found in the Book of Common Prayer, which was published in 1549. Now, I'm a busy man, but that's almost 500 years ago, doing the math in my head here. And the Book of Common Prayer has guidelines in it for religious services, customs, and worship in the Church of England, the Anglican Church. But you still might go, but okay, Steve, it goes back 500 years. Why is this a legal issue? Well, that's actually what we're getting at. And you have to think about what life was like 500 years ago or more. Because nowadays in America, especially if you follow the Hollywood theory of marriages, everybody out there has that one person they're meant to be with. And so when you find that person, you get married and live happily ever after. We all know that this is, whether that's a Hollywood or real life, they're both the same. But that's the whole point is that, and so you have the right in Hollywood to bust into a wedding ceremony, go, I object, I'm in love with her. And somehow Hollywood goes, oh, that makes complete sense. But it has nothing to do with that. That is the Hollywood portion of it. Go back 500 years, okay? And think of it, I think, even though I know it's older than that if you go to the opening scenes of Monty Python's Holy Grail. But imagine that you live in a village where you walk around knee-deep in muck all day long, and you do things like, catch muskrats with your bare hands, and you barely get by. But you're living in a little village. Chances are you don't travel a lot. You don't spend a lot of time, in Asia on vacation. You probably spend your entire life in and around that village, and depending on the size of the village, but you might never leave, or if you do leave, you travel to the nearby village. But you don't go far because cars were expensive back then. Think about it. You would spend your entire life, for the most part, in a really small area. And everybody knew everybody. And there were some customs that were different back then involving marriage. So, for instance, as we all know, you're only allowed to be married to one person at a time, at least as of right now. But it's been that way for quite some time. And if you are unmarried, you can get married. But if you are married, you can't just go off and marry somebody else unless your first spouse dies or if you get divorced, which would be extremely uncommon 500 years ago, okay, compared to today. So the first and most obvious objection to someone getting married is they're already married. So let's suppose that and you might go, but Steve, what are the odds of that happening, that somebody who's already married would try to get married again? Oh, there's a bunch of ways that could happen. So for instance, let's suppose that you actually did occasionally travel to the next village over. You traveled back and forth for whatever reason. Maybe you decide that you've got too many muskrats and you're going to take them over there and sell some muskrats and trade them for, I don't know, grain, and bring the grain back. You're in the muskrat grain business, okay? You import, export muskrats and grain in and out of your village. And while you do these travels back and forth, occasionally you got to know some of the people who are over in this other little town over here. And you meet a guy who's married. You meet his wife. And a couple weeks later, he's in your town marrying a local girl. Does anybody know of any reason why these two should not be wed? Yeah, I do. What's that? I think he's already married. He's married to some woman over in the other village who buys my muskrats. And the guy looks around and realizes he's been had, and he takes off running. Because remember that in those days, they didn't have good internet just yet. So how would you know if you were marrying somebody from a couple villages over what their marital status was? How would you know that? And the only thing that could backstop that would be if somebody local knew this, okay? But that's not the only reason. There might be other reasons. Another common thing back in the old days was that it was not uncommon for parents to betroth, is that the correct word here? I'm not sure I'm using it correctly, but they would actually promise their children in marriage to other families. So families would get together and go, okay, our daughter is going to marry your son. And sometimes they would exchange value for that, and there'd actually be a marriage contract. Now, I'm putting the contract in my imaginary quotes there because I don't know how enforceable his contracts were compared to the contracts we have today. The Uniform Commercial Code does not actually address marriage contracts. But if somebody was already spoken for in that sense, and they're about to get married, and somebody else in the audience knew that, they might want to point that out because of all the legal problems they're going to follow. Because back then, you can't do the Hollywood thing and run off and marry somebody just because you happen to love them. What? Are you crazy? Your dad already traded you for 5 bushels of muskrat in perpetuity once you two get married. Every month, he gets 5 bushels of muskrats. What do you can't go off and just marry somebody else. What are you, crazy? And that's another example. And another example might be, for instance, somebody's marrying somebody from the village, one village over, and they're getting married. And you're sitting in the back and you go, wait a second. I'm pretty sure that the bride is actually related to the groom in a close enough proximity of relation that it would be inappropriate for them to get married, depending on what the rules are at the time. And somewhere along the line, one branch of the family went to live over in the other village. Apparently, they don't have a lot of muskrats, but they got better grain over there. And so somebody who recognizes, wait, these two are too closely related. Speak now or forever hold your peace. Yes, you in the back who keeps objecting. I believe these two are too closely related. How are they related again? And so the weird part is that there actually was a point in the ceremony where they were, in essence, asking community members who might know these things, is there anything going on that we should actually know about before we bless this marriage and make it official? And so the notion that anybody in the audience is just, hey, this is like amateur hour, anybody can speak up now and do their piece. No. It's a part of the wedding ceremony now simply because it's tradition. People have heard that for so many years, especially in the movies, that they just assume it's going to be there. So number one, you need to know that for a marriage ceremony to be official, it doesn't need that language. And in fact, for a marriage ceremony to be official, they really only have to ask 2 or 3 things, okay? And they basically ask for the commitment from each side. You guys want to get married? Yeah, boom, you're married. And the officiant declares it and they're married. But nobody wants to have that 30-second ceremony and then a 6-hour reception. You gotta have the ceremony last a little longer than that, especially if you're romantic. And so to make your ceremony seem more old school, which is somehow more romantic, you'll leave in all the language about if anybody here knows a reason why these two should not be wed, speak now or forever hold your peace. And that's just in there for the ceremonial sound of it. But one thing I guarantee you right now is there's somebody who's already hammering away at the keyboards with their fists saying, this is absurd. This is absurd. That can't be the reason. Well, I don't know if you've ever looked at legal documents down at the courthouse, but if you go to apply for a marriage license, they actually have both sides, that is the bride and the groom, proposed bride, proposed groom, because might not get granted, right? They actually ask you a bunch of things on that document that you're applying for the license with. They ask you a bunch of questions. And they actually ask you, for instance, have you been married before? If so, how many times? They then ask you, have you been divorced? Now, that's a trick question. Because if you've been married twice before and you're applying for a marriage license, you better say, yes, I've been divorced. Because we've all heard of this where somebody's out there marrying people willy-nilly and forgetting about the divorce part. And now you could get away with that 100 years ago, maybe. 500 years ago, yeah, if you don't get caught. But the point is they ask you that now. How many marriages? How many divorces? Because there should be a correlation between those two numbers. If, in fact, either one of them is a number, larger than 0. So if you've never been married before, okay. But remember, you're signing this under penalty of perjury. But the point simply is that these questions are now asked of people when they're applying for a marriage license. And when you're asking these questions, they're doing it for a reason, and they are simply getting to the bottom of the exact same thing that they're getting at back in 1549, when the officiant of the ceremony would actually say to the congregation, which very well could be the bulk of the community, especially the elders, and say, does anyone here know of a reason why these two should not be married? And it very well could be that one of them's already married, but these people might not all know that, or one of these people is already spoken for in a way that might be legally binding in this society, or there could be other things going on, such as they're related to each other. Am I the only person who knows that? So that's the origin of the phrase and the question, but it was never intended as, does everyone here like this couple, or does anybody think that they look kind of goofy together? If so, somebody object right now and you can call the whole thing off. So that portion of it is a Hollywood invention. And every time I see it in a movie, it makes me cringe. Especially in the movies where somebody actually does raise their hand and raise an objection that would not have been acceptable in 1549. So there you go. It is a legal issue. I'll talk to you later.